What if I told you there's a creature that has no mouth, no stomach, no anus, and yet somehow feeds on the bones of dead whales lying at the bottom of the ocean? And what if I told you that this same creature was completely unknown to science until just over 20 years ago, despite having existed for millions of years? Welcome to the bizarre world of Osedax, the bone-eating zombie worms. These aren't your garden-variety earthworms, and they're definitely not what you'd expect to find feasting on a whale carcass 3,000 feet below the surface. A story about creatures that literally dissolve bone, males so tiny they're practically microscopic parasites, and a relationship with bacteria so intimate it rewrites what we thought we knew about digestion itself. Picture this, it's 2002, and a team of researchers from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute are exploring the deep-sea floor off the coast of California using a remotely operated vehicle. They stumble upon the skeleton of a gray whale, and covering its bones like a strange red and pink shag carpet are thousands of feathery plumes, gently waving in the current. At first, they thought these might be some kind of algae, or maybe even a type of coral. But when they brought samples back to the surface, they discovered something that would make them rewrite the textbooks. These were worms. But not just any worms. These were unlike any creature science had ever documented. Let me paint you a picture of what these creatures look like. Imagine a tube about an inch or two long, though some species can grow much larger. From one end sprouts a beautiful crown of feathery red plumes that look like delicate flowers or perhaps tiny palm trees. These plumes are actually gills, absorbing oxygen from the water. But here's where it gets weird. Follow that body down, and you'll find something that looks like roots burrowing deep into the bone itself. Except they're not roots, they're part of the worm's body, and they're busy doing something absolutely extraordinary. Now you might be thinking, okay, so it's a worm that lives on bones. What's the big deal? The big deal is how it feeds. Remember when I said these worms have no mouth, no stomach, and no anus? I wasn't exaggerating. So how does a creature without a digestive system eat solid bone? The answer is so bizarre it sounds like science fiction. The secret lies in what scientists call a trophosome, essentially a specialized organ packed with symbiotic bacteria. These aren't just any bacteria hitching a ride. These microscopic partners literally live inside the worm's tissue, and they have a very specific job. They produce acid. Lots of acid. The worm extends its root-like structures deep into the whale bone, and these bacteria start secreting acid that slowly dissolves the bone tissue. As the collagen and lipids from the bone break down, the bacteria absorb these nutrients and convert them into compounds the worm can use. It's like the worm has outsourced its entire digestive system to bacteria. They do all the heavy lifting, and everyone shares the meal. Think about that for a moment. This worm has evolved to completely give up its digestive tract and instead form this incredibly intimate partnership where bacteria are its digestion. It's absolutely wild. But wait, it gets even stranger. Since that first discovery in 2002, scientists have found over 25 different species of Osedax, and they're not just on whale bones. Researchers have found them on the bones of dead seals, sea lions, fish, and even cow bones that scientists deliberately sank to see what would happen. There's even evidence they might have been munching on prehistoric marine reptiles millions of years ago. Some species have bright red plumes, others are pink or white. Some are tiny, barely visible to the naked eye, while others can grow several inches long. Each species seems to have slightly different preferences for what kind of bones they colonize and at what depths they like to live. Now, here's where the story takes an absolutely bonkers turn. Let's talk about how these worms reproduce, because this might be the weirdest part of all. You know how I've been saying the worm this whole time? Well, technically, I've been talking about the females. The males? Oh, the males are different. Very different. Male Osedax worms are microscopic. We're talking smaller than a grain of sand. They have no root system, no bacteria, no way to feed themselves. Instead, They live as what scientists generously call dwarf males, inside or on the female's body. One female can harbor dozens, sometimes over 100 males. These males are basically just mobile sperm packets. Their entire existence is dedicated to one thing: fertilizing the female's eggs. It's like the ultimate extreme example of sexual dimorphism. The females are these relatively large, complex organisms with bacterial partners doing biochemistry, while the males have been reduced to almost nothing, just the bare essentials needed to reproduce. When baby Osedax are born, they start out as tiny larvae drifting in the ocean current. At this stage, they haven't yet decided what they're going to be when they grow up. If a larva lands on a bone where no other worms are present, or where only males exist, it develops into a female. She settles down, starts growing her bacterial garden, and begins the bone mining operation. But if a larva lands on a bone where females are already established, it transforms into a male, finds a female, and sets up permanent residence on or inside her tube. It's environmental sex determination taken to an extreme. Your gender is literally determined by your real estate choices. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because these worms aren't just weird curiosities. They play a crucial role in deep ocean ecosystems. When a whale dies and sinks to the ocean floor, an event scientists call a whale fall, it's like a feast delivery for the deep sea. That carcass can sustain a unique community of organisms for decades. First come the scavengers, sleeper sharks, hagfish, crabs. They strip away the soft tissue. Then come organisms that feed on the oils and fats in the bones. But eventually, you're left with this massive skeleton, and in the deep sea, calcium is actually a valuable resource. This is where Osedax comes in. These worms are essentially the demolition crew. They break down these massive bones that would otherwise sit on the ocean floor for centuries, potentially even thousands of years. By dissolving the bones, they're recycling all those nutrients back into the ecosystem. They're making that calcium and phosphorus and nitrogen available again. And here's something scientists only recently figured out. Before Osedax evolved, whale falls might have persisted much longer on the ocean floor. The evolution of these worms may have fundamentally changed how quickly whale bones get recycled in the deep sea. Some researchers think Osedax might have evolved around 45 million years ago, right around when whales themselves evolved. It's possible these worms co-evolved with whales, developing this bone-eating strategy specifically to exploit whale falls. There's also a darker side to this story, one that connects to human impact. As whale populations were decimated by industrial whaling, the frequency of whale falls decreased dramatically. Fewer whale falls means fewer opportunities for Osedax to feed and reproduce. Some scientists worry that rare species of these worms might have gone extinct before we even discovered them. Now that whale populations are recovering in many areas, whale falls are becoming more common again, which is good news for these bizarre bone eaters. But there's still so much we don't know. How do the bacteria and worms find each other in the first place? Do the worms inherit their bacterial partners from their mothers, or do they acquire them from the environment? How do different species of Osedax divide up resources when they're all competing for the same bone? Scientists are still actively studying these questions. Researchers at places like the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute are working to understand the full life cycle of these creatures. Some labs are even trying to raise them in captivity, growing them on bones and tanks, trying to witness the full transformation from larva to adult. There's something almost poetic about Osedax when you think about it. These are creatures that have adapted to feed on death itself, specifically, the death of the ocean's largest animals. They've given up the basic body plan that defines what we think an animal should be: mouth, gut, anus, and replaced it with something entirely new. They've formed a partnership so intimate with bacteria that the line between where the worm ends and the bacteria begins gets blurry. And they've developed a reproductive strategy so extreme it challenges our understanding of what it even means to be male or female in the animal kingdom. The next time you think about the deep ocean, don't just imagine darkness and pressure. Imagine those zombie worms, dancing on the bones of giants, quietly dissolving the dead and feeding the living. For millions of years, they've been down there doing their bizarre thing, completely unknown to us. And it makes you wonder, what else is down there that we haven't discovered yet? What other impossible creatures are living impossible lives in the deep? The ocean still holds secrets we can't even imagine. And sometimes, when we finally discover them, they're even weirder than anything we could have made up.